You're not going to believe what happened the moment I stepped into that house. The morning air was sharp, carrying the faint scent of rain that had soaked the city streets overnight. Lucy Adams tightened the straps of her worn backpack as she approached the massive gates of the Brooks estate, her heart thundering in her chest. She had agreed to cover for her sister for just one day, taking on the role of nanny for a single father she had never met, and now, standing in front of a mansion that could have been featured in a magazine, she felt entirely out of place. The towering stone columns, perfectly manicured gardens, and polished driveway were unlike anything she had ever known, and the butler who greeted her at the door with a nod only intensified the realization that she was a stranger in a world of wealth. Inside, the house smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh flowers, and the soft echo of her footsteps on the marble floor made her feel like she had stepped into someone else's life. At the sound of laughter, she turned toward the living room and saw a little boy with tousled brown hair darting around, clutching a stuffed bear and giggling as he hid behind a velvet sofa. Max Brooks looked at her with wide eyes, and Lucy knew immediately that her day was going to be anything but ordinary. She hesitated at the threshold, unsure how to introduce herself, when a sudden crash of blocks spilling across the floor sent the bear flying into her hands. Lucy caught it instinctively, and Max's eyes lit up with delight as he ran over, his small hands reaching for his favorite toy. The moment was chaotic and tender all at once, a whirlwind of energy that drew Lucy into the boy's world, forcing her to act quickly, smile sincerely, and engage fully even though every nerve in her body screamed that she was in over her head. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you cannot miss. She took a deep breath and knelt to Max's level, letting him see that she was on his side, ready to navigate whatever mischief he could throw her way. The clock on the wall ticked steadily as she attempted to establish authority. Gently, asking Max to gather his toys while she set up a small table for breakfast. The little boy giggled and teased her playfully, testing boundaries and laughing when she pretended to be surprised at his clever tricks. Lucy realized that keeping up with Max was more than just a job. It was a challenge to her patience, creativity, and empathy all at once. As she moved from room to room, arranging breakfast and checking that everything was safe, she noticed the subtle indications of wealth that surrounded her. The gleam of the crystal chandelier above, the pristine surfaces of the furniture, and a phone that occasionally buzzed with messages from someone important, though she could not see the sender. Each detail heightened her curiosity, and a sense of intrigue settled over her like a thin veil. Lucy wondered about the father of this lively child, imagining a stern, formal man who might return at any moment to find her in the midst of chaos. She could not shake the feeling that this day would be transformative, not just for Max, but for herself as well, as though the ordinary act of stepping in for her sister might open a door to an entirely new chapter of her life. Every laugh, every spill, every moment of Max's small hand in hers was planting a seed of connection that promised to grow in unexpected ways before the end of the day. The gentle hum of activity in the kitchen, the aroma of toasted bread, and the soft clatter of silverware against plates formed a rhythm that guided Lucy, easing her tension while keeping her alert to every twist and turn that the day might bring. She did not yet know that each interaction, each challenge, and each smile shared would lay the groundwork for a revelation about the father she had yet to meet, one that would change everything she thought she knew about her life, her work, and her capacity to care for another human being. The morning sunlight slanting through the tall windows painted golden highlights on the hardwood floor, and Lucy felt a curious mixture of awe, nervousness, and anticipation as she realized that what began as a simple favor for her sister could evolve into an experience that neither she nor Max would ever forget. Lucy stepped back from the breakfast table, brushing crumbs from her hands, and took a deep breath as the morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting golden patterns across the marble floor. Max Brooks, still giggling, darted around the room with a toy car, his laughter echoing off the high ceilings, filling the house with an energy that was both exhausting and endearing. Lucy moved carefully, keeping pace with him, trying to guide him toward the little play area she had quickly set up while secretly marveling at the grandeur around her. Every detail of the house seemed to whisper wealth and privilege, from the polished oak floors to the delicate porcelain figurines perched along the staircase. Yet Lucy felt a strange blend of awe and intimidation as she navigated the unfamiliar territory. Max suddenly paused, looking up at her with wide eyes and a mischievous smile, holding up a crayon in one hand and a half-finished drawing in the other. His small voice said, "Can we draw together now, please?" Lucy knelt down beside him, accepting the crayons, and watched as he enthusiastically scribbled lines across the page, explaining with great seriousness that this was a rocket ship to the moon. She laughed softly, the sound blending with the faint hum of the house, and encouraged him to add planets and stars, finding herself drawn into the imaginative world he was building. As she listened to his excited chatter, Lucy began to notice more subtle hints about the family she had been thrust into. A framed photograph of a man she assumed was Max's father, seated at a polished desk with an air of authority, a letter resting nearby with a corporate seal, and the occasional soft vibration of a smartphone from the next room. Her curiosity grew, tempered by the knowledge that she needed to focus on the little boy in front of her. She guided Max to the dining room table for a simple snack, helping him pour juice and arrange fruit on a plate. And in those quiet moments, she caught herself imagining what kind of man could command such a home while raising a child with apparent love and attention. She could not yet know, of course, that the man she was imagining was already observing her, unseen from the kitchen doorway, assessing her patience, kindness, and ability to connect with his son. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you cannot miss. The day progressed, with Lucy juggling the responsibilities of breakfast, playtime, and keeping Max engaged in safe activities, all while navigating the elegance of the estate that felt so foreign to her. Each room she entered revealed more of the family life she had been abruptly invited into. Sunlight glinting off crystal chandeliers, stacks of books carefully arranged on shelves, and a grand piano in the corner that Max occasionally tapped to make musical sounds. Lucy could feel her heart both racing and settling at the same time, a mixture of excitement and nervous tension as she realized that the boy was testing her limits with gentle mischief and that she was slowly adapting to his rhythm. Between helping Max tie his shoelaces and redirecting him from a precarious climb up a low cabinet, Lucy felt the subtle weight of responsibility that came with caring for another person, a weight she had never fully experienced before. And yet, with each small success, a smile from Max, a laugh shared over a spilled cup of juice, a high five after completing a simple puzzle, she felt a growing connection, a fragile bond that hinted at possibilities far beyond the single day she had agreed to spend here. By mid-morning, Lucy paused at the staircase, watching Max play with his toy cars across the hallway, and she allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. She wondered who the father might be, what his life looked like when he was not in the background of his son's adventures, and whether her presence here, even for just one day, could leave an imprint on Max that mattered. She straightened her posture, smoothing her hair, and prepared mentally for whatever challenges the rest of the day would bring, sensing instinctively that the ordinary task of filling in for her sister could evolve into an extraordinary encounter that neither she nor Max would forget. By late morning, the energy in the Brooks estate had shifted from playful chaos to a gentle rhythm, though Lucy still felt the constant pull of responsibility tugging at every part of her. Max, now fully immersed in a game of building towers with wooden blocks, occasionally glanced up to make sure Lucy was watching, his eyes sparkling with mischief and expectation. Lucy knelt beside him, guiding his hands as he carefully balanced the final piece, and she realized that keeping him engaged required as much creativity and patience as any job she had ever held. Each tower that fell and was rebuilt seemed to mirror the small victories and setbacks of the day, and Lucy found herself laughing genuinely with the boy, feeling a warmth she had not expected to experience in a house so unfamiliar. As she moved to clear the floor, she caught a glimpse of the grand staircase, noting a framed photograph of a man she assumed to be Max's father, standing confidently in a tailored suit, his eyes sharp and alert, hinting at a life of authority and responsibility. The faint hum of conversation from the kitchen staff, combined with the soft ticking of an ornate clock in the hall, created a background that was both serene and commanding, an atmosphere that contrasted sharply with the playful energy she managed with Max. Lucy guided Max to the small table she had arranged for snack time, helping him pour a glass of milk and arrange apple slices on a plate. And she marveled at the ease with which he accepted her guidance, though he still insisted on adding extra cookies to his snack, his eyes pleading for just a little indulgence. She smiled, giving in gently, and felt a surprising sense of accomplishment in these simple acts, realizing that care and attention could build trust in ways far more profound than words alone. Outside the window, the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the manicured gardens, and Lucy found herself observing the subtle hints of wealth scattered throughout the home. A polished grand piano in the corner, sunlight reflecting off the crystal chandelier above, and a stack of well-organized books with titles suggesting travel, art, and business. She could not yet comprehend the full scope of the life she had stepped into, but she understood enough to know that there were lessons to be learned here, both in patience and in observation. Lucy's thoughts were interrupted when Max suddenly squealed, pointing toward a small gate that led to the backyard, and she followed his gaze to see a small puppy waiting eagerly for attention, wagging its tail in delight. She crouched down to greet it alongside Max, noting the joy and simple connection that this animal brought into their morning, and she felt her own shoulders relax for the first time since she had arrived. The morning continued with playful challenges and quiet triumphs, Lucy navigating a delicate balance between encouraging independence in Max and ensuring his safety, while absorbing the details of the home and the subtle rhythm of the family life she had entered. She noticed a phone lying on a side table, briefly vibrating with incoming messages that she could not interpret, and she guessed that it belonged to Max's father, though she had yet to meet him directly. The anticipation of his return, the hints of a complex life beyond what she had witnessed, and the trust developing between her and Max combined to create an undercurrent of tension and excitement, a sense that the ordinary task of stepping in for her sister had opened the door to experiences and revelations that would shape the rest of her day and perhaps her understanding of the world she had briefly entered. As she adjusted Max's napkin and guided him toward coloring, Lucy felt a deepening awareness that her presence mattered in ways that extended beyond immediate play or supervision, that the small acts of care she performed were weaving threads of trust, curiosity, and connection that would carry forward, building a foundation for interactions yet to come, and setting the stage for encounters and surprises that would test her empathy, judgment, and capacity for unexpected relationships within this household. Lucy glanced at the clock on the wall and realized that the morning had slipped away faster than she had anticipated, leaving a trail of scattered toys, half-eaten snacks, and Max's laughter lingering in the air like a melody she could not forget. She guided Max to the small table she had set up for arts and crafts, her hands steadying the paper and markers as he eagerly picked his favorite colors, red and blue, for a drawing that he announced would be a superhero saving the world. Lucy smiled, watching his small fingers dance across the page with focused determination, and she felt a surge of warmth realizing that she was gradually becoming a part of his universe, even if only for this one day. Each brushstroke and scribble revealed not just his imagination, but also the trust he was placing in her, a trust she did not take lightly. She crouched down to adjust the position of his paper, and for a moment their eyes met, and she saw in them the boundless energy and honesty of a child who felt safe enough to be completely himself. The sound of soft footsteps on the polished floor drew her attention toward the foyer, and she noticed a gentle figure moving quietly in the background, carrying a tray of snacks, perhaps the housekeeper ensuring that breakfast had been properly tidied. Lucy kept her focus on Max, guiding him patiently as he added details to his superhero's cape, but she could not help noticing the quiet order of the house, the precision with which everything was maintained, and the subtle hints of a life far removed from her own. Max suddenly pointed toward a cabinet where he had hidden a small toy, his eyes wide with anticipation, and Lucy leaned down to retrieve it, handing it to him with a smile that encouraged him to continue exploring, knowing that the sense of discovery was part of the joy she was helping him cultivate. Outside, the sunlight shifted, illuminating the fine details of the living room furniture, from the intricate patterns on the Persian rug to the delicate carvings along the edges of the grand piano. And Lucy felt a mix of awe and humility as she realized the stark contrast between this world and her own modest apartment. She helped Max tidy his workspace, carefully placing markers in their proper holders, and in doing so, she felt the subtle weight of responsibility that came with the task, the delicate balance of nurturing independence while ensuring safety. As she guided him to the small reading nook she had improvised, Lucy noticed a framed photograph of a man she assumed to be his father, seated at a massive oak desk, his expression calm but commanding, a subtle reminder of the authority that governed this household even in the absence of its head. She wondered what it would be like to meet him, to understand the rules and routines that shaped Max's day-to-day life, and a flicker of curiosity stirred within her as she imagined the possibilities that lay ahead. Max settled into a beanbag chair with his favorite storybook, and Lucy sat nearby, ready to read aloud, her voice soft but animated, bringing the characters to life as Max followed along, eyes wide with delight. The narrative unfolded, punctuated by his laughter and excited commentary, and Lucy found herself completely absorbed, the hours passing unnoticed as the connection between her and Max deepened, an unspoken bond forming that transcended words. In that moment, she understood that her presence mattered, that the small acts of attention, care, and encouragement were leaving an impression on this child, shaping his experience of the day in a meaningful way. She looked toward the staircase again, wondering about the father she had yet to meet, imagining the conversations, the guidance, and the life that had brought Max to this point, and she felt a growing anticipation, a sense that her ordinary morning had transformed into something extraordinary, filled with possibility, discovery, and the subtle promise of unexpected revelations to come. As the afternoon sun slanted through the tall windows of the Brooks estate, Lucy felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration from the morning spent with Max. The little boy was sprawled across the rug, his crayon-streaked hands carefully adding details to a cardboard castle he had constructed, his imagination transforming the room into a kingdom of knights and dragons. Lucy sat nearby, offering guidance only when necessary, letting him lead the narrative of his game while gently steering him away from actions that might topple the fragile structure. She marveled at his creativity and energy, realizing that every suggestion he made, every tiny decision in his play, was a glimpse into his personality, his curiosity, and his emerging sense of autonomy. The quiet hum of the estate, punctuated by distant footsteps of staff attending to household duties, gave the room a serene yet ordered atmosphere, a subtle reminder that she was still a guest navigating someone else's domain. Lucy guided Max to the window where sunlight highlighted the rich textures of the furniture and the gleam of the polished floors, suggesting that even in the midst of play, there were lessons to be learned about observation, care, and attention to detail. Max's laughter suddenly broke her thoughts as he spotted a colorful bird outside the window, its wings catching the sunlight in a fleeting shimmer of color, and he darted toward the window, pointing and exclaiming excitedly. Lucy followed, laughing softly, and together they observed the bird, its small movements captivating their attention. In that moment, the mundane world outside contrasted sharply with the fantastical world they were creating inside, and Lucy felt a deepening sense of connection not just to Max, but to the rhythms and nuances of this household she was temporarily inhabiting. The doorbell rang unexpectedly, startling both of them, and Lucy rose quickly, gently holding Max's hand to calm him while she walked toward the entrance. She peered through the glass panels to see a delivery person holding a small package, which she signed for before bringing it inside, curious about the contents and the sender. Max, sensing the excitement, tugged at her sleeve, his eyes wide with anticipation, and Lucy smiled, realizing that even small interruptions had the power to create moments of shared wonder. As she carried the package toward the living room, she caught sight of the study door slightly ajar, and a polished smartphone lying on the desk vibrated with an incoming message, a subtle clue to the life of the man she had yet to meet. She tucked the thought aside, focusing instead on returning Max to his castle, helping him build a drawbridge while narrating playful scenarios, each story designed to spark his imagination and encourage problem-solving. Lucy's mind wandered briefly to the father she had yet to meet, imagining a man whose authority and attentiveness shaped the structure and order of the household, and she wondered what his reaction might be when he finally saw her, realizing how seamlessly she had stepped into the role of temporary caretaker. The day unfolded with a rhythm of creativity, laughter, and quiet observation, Lucy adjusting to the pace set by Max, learning to anticipate his needs and respond to his curiosities. And in those hours, she felt the fragile beginnings of trust and connection, an invisible thread weaving through the room that tied her presence to his joy and sense of security. Every small accomplishment, the castle standing tall, Max successfully stacking blocks on his own, the careful handling of crayons without breaking them, added to her confidence and awareness that she was becoming more than a temporary guardian. She was becoming an integral part of his day, a steady companion in the imaginative world he was constructing. The afternoon light softened, casting a warm glow on their activities, and Lucy felt a subtle thrill, a quiet sense of anticipation, that the day might hold more surprises and connections than she had anticipated, a sense that the ordinary act of filling in for her sister could evolve into something extraordinary for both her and Max, setting the stage for events that would soon change the trajectory of her day and perhaps her understanding of the household she had so unexpectedly entered. Lucy stepped outside into the soft warmth of the afternoon, carrying Max's sketchbook under her arm, and felt the gentle tension of anticipation ripple through her. The boy tugged her hand as he led her toward the backyard, his small feet pattering across the stone pathway, his laughter echoing against the walls of the grand estate. A sudden commotion by the side gate caught their attention, and Lucy instinctively moved closer to Max, shielding him with a reassuring hand as a sleek black sedan rolled to a stop, its polished surface gleaming in the sunlight. The car door opened, and a tall man in a tailored suit stepped out, his expression calm but alert, his eyes scanning the yard with a precision that immediately suggested authority and awareness. Lucy froze for a moment, a subtle intuition telling her that this was no ordinary visitor. Max, oblivious to her caution, ran toward the man, waving enthusiastically, and the man bent down, his face lighting up with a rare, genuine smile as he greeted his son. The way he interacted with Max was fluid and familiar, yet Lucy sensed a controlled restraint in his movements, a careful balance of care and command that spoke of experience and responsibility. She stayed close, observing silently, noting the meticulousness with which he checked the surrounding area before kneeling to adjust Max's backpack, ensuring the straps were snug and comfortable. Lucy felt a flutter of curiosity, combined with the undeniable pull of intrigue, as she realized she had been drawn into a household governed by someone whose presence exuded both power and warmth. Max tugged at her sleeve, urging her to join in, and Lucy stepped forward, introducing herself softly. "My name is Lucy, and I am helping out with Max today." The man looked up, his gaze steady and appraising, and a faint nod of acknowledgement suggested that he was taking note of her calm composure and willingness to engage with his son. The afternoon stretched on with playful games, creative drawing sessions, and gentle instruction, yet every moment was underscored by a subtle tension, a silent exchange of judgments and impressions, as Lucy and the man navigated the shared space with mutual awareness. When Max needed help constructing an elaborate fortress from blocks, Lucy and the man worked together seamlessly, their coordinated efforts unspoken but effective, revealing a rhythm of cooperation that bridged their unfamiliarity. Lucy felt a growing sense of connection, Recognizing that their combined attention and care provided Max not only amusement, but also a sense of security and engagement that was vital for his spirited personality. The man, while efficient and authoritative, displayed moments of soft encouragement, kneeling beside Lucy and Max to offer guidance, a gentle smile acknowledging her contributions without words. Lucy noticed the subtle hints of his identity, the manner in which his suit fit, the expensive watch glinting in the sunlight, and the quiet control he held over the household dynamics. Yet she remained focused on Max, allowing her attention to be guided by the child's needs rather than speculation. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long golden beams across the estate, Lucy felt the day shifting towards something more profound, the simple act of supervising Max revealing layers of trust, responsibility, and unspoken connection between her, the boy, and the man who had just arrived. Every shared smile, every nod of approval, and every gesture of cooperation laid the groundwork for understanding and recognition. And Lucy sensed that the ordinary tasks she performed had begun to unlock extraordinary insights about the household she had stepped into, setting the stage for revelations that would soon alter her perception and the course of the day in ways she could not yet fully imagine. Lucy paused at the foot of the staircase, her heart skipping a beat as she noticed the man who had been observing her throughout the afternoon finally step forward from the shadows of the hallway. He stood tall, his posture commanding yet not intimidating, and his eyes met hers with a calm intensity that made her stomach flutter unexpectedly. Max ran ahead, excitedly shouting "Daddy," and the man bent down to scoop him up in his arms, holding him close as he ruffled the boy's hair gently. Lucy watched silently, her mind racing, realizing in that single, fluid movement the bond between father and son and the unmistakable authority he held in this household. The man straightened, glancing at Lucy with a measured gaze that seemed to weigh her presence. And then he spoke, his voice even but warm. "I am Ethan Brooks, Max's father, and I wanted to personally thank you for stepping in today." Lucy blinked, caught off guard by the revelation, her hand instinctively tightening around the sketchbook she had carried with her all morning. She felt a mixture of awe, disbelief, and a subtle nervous excitement as she absorbed the fact that the man she had been indirectly interacting with, whose life she had only glimpsed through subtle hints, was not just someone of wealth, but the very person who commanded this entire estate. Ethan stepped closer, his demeanor relaxed yet authoritative, observing her reaction with a slight, knowing smile, as if reading the questions and curiosity swirling in her mind. Max, oblivious to the sudden formality of the moment, wriggled in his father's arms and asked Lucy to sit with them, wanting to share his afternoon adventures, and she moved hesitantly, realizing that the dynamics of the household had shifted in a single revelation. Ethan gently set Max down, crouching to be at his son's eye level, asking about the games they had played, the drawings they had made, and the imaginative stories they had created together. Lucy followed, sharing in the recounting, explaining Max's superhero battles and castle defenses, and she noticed Ethan listening intently, occasionally glancing at her with a subtle nod or raised eyebrow, acknowledging her engagement and patience with his son. As the conversation unfolded, Lucy felt a growing sense of ease, the initial tension of standing in a wealthy household beginning to ease as she realized that Ethan's approach combined authority with genuine warmth and attentiveness. She observed the careful balance in his interactions, moments of guidance tempered with encouragement, gestures of discipline softened by humor, and a clear attentiveness to Max's emotional cues, all of which spoke volumes about the kind of father he was and the trust he placed in someone who had entered his home for a single day. Act of stepping in for her sister now intertwined with insights, impressions, and an unspoken recognition that her impact on Max and her own experience in this household were becoming far more meaningful than she could have imagined. Every glance, every gesture, and every moment of shared laughter created an unspoken understanding, and Lucy sensed that the unfolding hours would challenge, reveal, and deepen the connections between herself, Max, and Ethan setting the stage for events that would soon change the trajectory of her day and perhaps her perception of this household entirely. Lucy felt a sudden surge of self-consciousness as Ethan, now fully revealed as Max's father and the head of this expansive household, turned toward her with a thoughtful expression and an unexpected invitation. He spoke with quiet authority, suggesting that she join him in the study to review some ideas for a community project he was organizing, a gesture that was at once formal and deeply personal. Lucy hesitated for a brief moment, glancing at Max, who waved eagerly and encouraged her with a small smile, and she realized that accepting this invitation meant stepping further into a world that was unfamiliar yet strangely compelling. She followed Ethan through the long corridor, the polished floors reflecting their movements, and the sunlight filtering through the tall windows highlighted the subtle elegance of the house in a way that made Lucy feel both intimidated and honored to be part of it. Discussion was interrupted by the sound of Max's laughter, echoing from the playroom, and both adults exchanged a knowing smile, recognizing the boy's role as the link between them, a living embodiment of care, trust, and innocence. Lucy excused herself briefly to attend to Max, guiding him gently through a small problem with his toy blocks, and Ethan observed silently, noting her patience, creativity, and ability to maintain calm in the midst of minor chaos. When she returned to the study, Ethan had retrieved a small notebook, its pages filled with sketches and ideas for future activities with Max, and he shared a few anecdotes about his son's interests and quirks, highlighting his attentiveness to detail, curiosity, and energy. Lucy was impressed not only by the depth of his involvement as a father, but also by his awareness of the importance of fostering a nurturing environment, and she realized that the connection forming between them was rooted in mutual recognition of care, responsibility, and shared priorities. Throughout the afternoon, Lucy found herself growing more comfortable, understanding that her actions, though small, were seen, appreciated, and had tangible impact on both Max and Ethan. Every suggestion she made, every moment of encouragement, and every laugh shared contributed to an unspoken bond that was taking shape, fragile yet promising. She felt a quiet thrill knowing that this day, which had begun as a temporary favor for her sister, had evolved into an encounter that was reshaping her understanding of trust, family, and the subtle dynamics that define relationships in a household such as this. The sunlight shifted again, casting long, warm shadows across the room, and Lucy felt a sense of anticipation for what might come next, realizing that the ordinary actions of the afternoon were laying the foundation for something extraordinary, a deeper connection that would influence her experience, Max's happiness, and the unfolding narrative of trust and discovery between herself and Ethan. The afternoon sunlight shifted, casting a warm glow across the Brooks estate, and Lucy felt a mixture of satisfaction and curiosity as she watched Max carefully line up his toy soldiers across the rug, his concentration intense yet playful. She knelt beside him, guiding his small hands as he arranged each piece, and marveled at the precision and imagination he brought to such a simple game. Each move he made was deliberate, yet infused with the creativity that only a child could possess, and Lucy found herself laughing quietly as he narrated epic battles between imaginary kingdoms, using his tiny voice to command his army with enthusiasm and authority. The house around them, with its polished floors, crystal chandeliers, and gleaming windows, seemed to fade into the background as Lucy focused entirely on the world Max was creating. Her attention was interrupted when the sound of a distant door closing and the soft click of heels on the marble floor caught her ear, and she turned to see Ethan entering the room, carrying a file and a tablet in one hand, his expression calm yet attentive. He greeted her with a nod, and Lucy responded with a polite smile, feeling a subtle awareness of the dynamic shift in the room now that he had fully engaged with both her and his son. Max, noticing his father's presence, paused mid-sentence, then ran to him, leaping into his arms with laughter, and Ethan held him securely, ruffling his hair and asking questions about the afternoon's activities. Lucy returned to her spot on the floor, observing the subtle ways Ethan interacted with Max, The careful balance of discipline and encouragement, the way he listened attentively to his son's ideas, and the ease with which he managed the space of the room. As Max returned to his play, Ethan motioned for Lucy to follow him to a quiet corner of the room, his tone measured but kind, and he began to explain his vision for a weekend activity involving community outreach for children in the neighborhood. Lucy listened intently, offering thoughtful suggestions based on her own experiences, and she noticed a flicker of approval in Ethan's eyes, a subtle acknowledgement that her insights were valued. The conversation was punctuated by occasional glances at Max, who continued his imaginative play, oblivious to the subtle undercurrent of assessment taking place. Lucy realized that Ethan was observing not just her interactions with Max, but also her capacity for empathy, creativity, and problem-solving, and she felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement, knowing that this day, which had started as a simple favor for her sister, was evolving into a deeper, more meaningful engagement. The afternoon light shifted again, bathing the room in a golden hue, and Lucy found herself considering the nuances of her own behavior, aware that her patience, attentiveness, and genuine care were being noticed and appreciated. Ethan spoke briefly about his expectations for Max's routines, emphasizing the importance of balancing structure with freedom, and Lucy nodded, affirming her understanding while contributing small insights on how to maintain engagement and fun simultaneously. Each moment built upon the last, creating an intricate dance of attention, guidance, and observation, and Lucy felt herself growing more confident, more attuned to the rhythms of the household, and increasingly aware of the subtle ways in which trust was forming between her, Max, and Ethan. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the polished floors, Lucy realized that the ordinary acts of care and attention she had provided were laying the groundwork for deeper connections, the kind that would influence not just the remainder of the day, but also the unfolding relationship with both father and son. And she felt a quiet anticipation, a sense that the hours yet to come would reveal new layers of understanding, trust, and possibly an unexpected bond that extended beyond the simple task she had agreed to fulfill for her sister. As the golden afternoon light began to soften, Lucy noticed a subtle shift in the atmosphere of the Brooks estate, a tension that had been building quietly now beginning to reveal itself in small, unexpected ways. Max was engrossed in a puzzle on the living room floor, but Lucy could see his energy oscillating between focus and bursts of playful distraction, reflecting the same undercurrent she felt in the room. Ethan stood nearby, observing with a calm but watchful demeanor, his eyes occasionally flicking toward Lucy with a faint question in them, as if measuring her reactions and assessing her composure under the delicate dynamics of the household. Lucy felt a sudden rush of self-awareness, realizing that every action she took, every small decision about how to engage Max, and even the way she moved around the room, was being quietly evaluated. She smiled nervously, crouching to adjust one of the puzzle pieces and gently guiding Max's hands, feeling the weight of responsibility that came with both care and scrutiny. Ethan spoke softly, offering advice on the puzzle, his voice carrying authority, but also a subtle warmth that made the guidance feel collaborative rather than corrective. Lucy nodded, appreciating his approach, and felt a surge of understanding that her temporary role in the house was evolving into something more meaningful, a delicate partnership forged through observation, support, and shared attention to Max, oblivious to the underlying tension, jumped up suddenly, knocking over a stack of building blocks, and Lucy reacted instinctively, steadying him with a gentle grip on his arms and a soft, calming voice. Ethan's eyes followed her movements, and for a moment, Lucy caught a flicker of approval in his gaze, a recognition of her ability to remain composed and empathetic even in the midst of minor chaos. She felt a subtle thrill, realizing that her ordinary task of supervising and entertaining Max was providing her with insights into the rhythms, expectations, and unspoken standards of the household, lessons that extended far beyond simple childcare. The room seemed to hold its breath as she guided Max back to the puzzle, engaging him in discussion about the shapes and colors, while Ethan offered small nods of encouragement from his position nearby. Lucy began to feel a quiet confidence growing within her, a recognition that her presence was being valued, not just for the immediate care she provided, but also for the thoughtful attention she brought to the interactions with both Max and Ethan. As she placed the final piece of the puzzle, she looked up to see Ethan approaching, holding a small notebook that appeared to contain notes and ideas for future activities with Max. He explained a few plans with calm detail, emphasizing the importance of patience, creativity, and engagement, and Lucy listened carefully, offering her own suggestions where appropriate. The conversation was light yet layered, revealing Ethan's respect for her perspective and his subtle effort to integrate her insights into the ongoing care and development of his son. Each moment of interaction, every exchange of advice, guidance, or playful encouragement was a careful dance of attention and trust, and Lucy realized that the ordinary tasks she had been performing were laying the foundation for a deeper connection and understanding between herself, Max, and Ethan. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting elongated shadows across the polished floors, and Lucy felt a heightened sense of anticipation, knowing that the day had shifted into new territory, one where small gestures, shared laughter, and mutual respect would soon reveal the true depth of relationships forming in this extraordinary household. She understood that the unfolding hours were shaping a subtle but meaningful narrative, one that would influence not only Max's day, but also the evolving perception and connection she shared with Ethan, creating the conditions for trust, understanding, and emotional intimacy to emerge naturally. The late afternoon light filtered softly through the tall windows, casting a warm glow over the living room as Lucy watched Max settle onto the rug with a stack of books, his small hands carefully turning the pages with a focused curiosity that made her smile. She sat nearby, observing the intricate movements, the way his eyes followed the illustrations, and the occasional whispered commentary that revealed his vivid imagination. The quiet rhythm of the household had shifted, and Lucy felt the subtle weight of the day, the accumulation of small moments of care, laughter, and guidance coalescing into a profound sense of connection. Ethan, standing at the edge of the room, watched the scene unfold with a calm attentiveness, his gaze softening as he noted the ease with which Lucy had adapted to his son's energy, the thoughtful attention she gave to his needs, and the patience she displayed in guiding him through both play and learning. He approached slowly, careful not to disrupt the delicate balance that had formed, and spoke gently, asking Lucy for her thoughts on ways to encourage Max's interest while still maintaining structure in his routine. She responded thoughtfully, suggesting activities that combine creativity with problem-solving, her voice calm and confident, and Ethan nodded approvingly, clearly valuing her perspective and insight. The conversation flowed naturally, punctuated by occasional interactions with Max, who chimed in with questions and comments, his laughter and excitement filling the room with warmth. Lucy realized that the small acts she had performed throughout the day, organizing playtime, guiding Max through puzzles, encouraging his artistic expression, had not only built trust with the boy, but also demonstrated her capacity to engage thoughtfully and empathetically with someone she had only just met. As the light began to fade, casting long shadows across the polished floors, Lucy felt a deepening sense of accomplishment and awareness, understanding that her presence had tangible impact in this household, and that the bonds she had formed were meaningful. Ethan invited her to accompany him and Max to the study, explaining that he wanted to show her some of the plans he had made for Max's weekend activities, and she followed, her curiosity piqued and her attentiveness heightened. In the study, Ethan laid out sketches, notes, and ideas, explaining with patience and clarity the objectives of each activity, and Lucy listened carefully, offering her own suggestions, and the dialogue between them was respectful, insightful, and collaborative. She felt a growing recognition that her contributions were not just appreciated, but integrated into the planning, a subtle validation of the care and thoughtfulness she had brought to the day. Max, sitting nearby, continued to fidget with small toys, occasionally glancing at the discussion, and Lucy realized how seamlessly her role as caregiver and collaborator had woven her into the fabric of their afternoon. As they discussed potential outings, crafts, and learning opportunities, Lucy noted the nuanced ways Ethan balanced authority with warmth, structure with flexibility, and guidance with encouragement, and she felt a deep respect for his approach as a father. Each shared idea, every nod of approval, and every moment of understanding contributed to a sense of mutual trust and growing rapport, reinforcing the foundation of connection that had begun to form earlier in the day. The shadows lengthened further, sunlight glinting off the polished surfaces, and Lucy felt a quiet anticipation, an awareness that the ordinary acts of the day had led to extraordinary insights and bonds, setting the stage for trust, understanding, and a shared sense of purpose to deepen between herself, Ethan, and Max, and she knew that the remainder of the day would bring further revelations, lessons, and the subtle unfolding of meaningful relationships that were only just beginning to reveal their full depth. The late afternoon sun cast long, golden rays across the living room, illuminating the polished floors and reflecting off the crystal chandeliers in a way that made the house feel both grand and intimate. Lucy watched as Max gathered his toys and carefully placed them back into their bins, his movements deliberate yet playful, a clear reflection of the patience and guidance he had absorbed throughout the day. She knelt beside him, helping him with the final arrangement, and felt a subtle pride in seeing how he responded to her instructions, his laughter echoing softly through the room. Ethan entered quietly from the study, his presence commanding attention without force, and Lucy immediately felt the gentle shift in the atmosphere, a mixture of anticipation and warmth. He smiled at the sight of Lucy and Max working together, and for a moment, the three of them shared a quiet, harmonious rhythm that seemed to encapsulate the culmination of the day's events. Ethan spoke, his voice calm and steady, suggesting that they take a short walk through the gardens before dinner, an invitation that was both casual and deliberate, giving Lucy the chance to observe his interactions with Max while providing space for conversation. Lucy agreed, guiding Max to the door, and together they stepped into the soft evening light. The gardens bathed in a golden glow with shadows stretching across the manicured lawns. Max ran ahead, his small footsteps pattering on the stone path, and Lucy followed, laughing quietly as he pointed out flowers and insects, his excitement infectious. Ethan walked alongside her, his gaze observing the interplay between her and his son, and Lucy felt a quiet, nervous energy, aware that their interactions were building a deeper understanding and connection that transcended words. As they reached a secluded bench, Ethan gestured for Lucy to sit, and she complied, her hands folded in her lap, her mind racing with thoughts about the day, the boy, and the man before her. He spoke gently, acknowledging her patience, creativity, and the care she had shown, and Lucy felt a warmth spread through her chest, a recognition that her presence had been meaningful and appreciated. Max, sensing a moment of calm, climbed onto the bench between them, leaning against Ethan, and Lucy watched as the father and son shared a quiet exchange, the kind of subtle gestures and smiles that spoke volumes about trust, love, and connection. Ethan turned his attention back to Lucy, his eyes meeting hers with sincerity, and he expressed gratitude not only for the care she had provided Max, but also for the insight, thoughtfulness, and genuine engagement she had brought to the household, highlighting the subtle ways in which her contributions had positively impacted both of them. Lucy felt a rush of emotion, a mixture of pride, relief, and anticipation, understanding that the ordinary act of stepping in for her sister had blossomed into a profound and meaningful experience, one that had established trust, mutual respect, and the foundation for deeper connections. As the sun continued to set, casting a soft amber glow across the garden, Ethan extended his hand toward her, a gesture that carried both warmth and invitation, suggesting the possibility of continued collaboration, shared experiences, and perhaps something more intimate over time. Lucy hesitated only briefly before taking his hand, feeling the gentle strength and reassurance in his touch, and she realized that the day had culminated in a moment of quiet triumph, where patience, empathy, and genuine care had created bonds that were now unspoken yet profoundly understood. Max leaned against her as they walked back toward the house, his small hand in hers, and Lucy felt a sense of belonging, an awareness that her presence mattered, and that the ordinary had become extraordinary. The estate seemed to hold its breath in the soft twilight, the light reflecting the potential of new beginnings, trust, and connections formed through small acts of kindness, attention, and care, leaving Lucy with a profound understanding that the experiences of this single day had set the stage for relationships, discoveries, and emotional bonds that would continue to grow and shape the lives of all three of them. The evening had settled over the Brooks estate, casting long shadows and bathing the gardens and hallways in a soft, amber glow, as Lucy felt the quiet satisfaction of a day that had begun as a simple favor and evolved into something profoundly meaningful. Max sat on the sofa, tired but content, clutching his favorite stuffed bear, his small eyes bright as he recounted the afternoon's adventures to both Lucy and Ethan, describing battles won, puzzles completed, and imaginary journeys undertaken. Lucy listened, smiling, and felt a deep warmth in her chest, knowing that her presence had created joy and trust, not just for Max but for the man who had welcomed her into his home. Ethan stepped closer, his hand resting lightly on Lucy's shoulder, and for the first time, he spoke with a quiet certainty that made her heart skip a beat, saying that her patience, empathy, and genuine care had left a lasting impression, not only on Max, but on him as well. Lucy looked up, meeting his eyes, and felt an unspoken understanding pass between them, a recognition that the ordinary acts of kindness and attention throughout the day had forged a connection that could not be undone. Max tugged gently at Lucy's sleeve, urging her to sit beside him, and as she did, Ethan took a seat across from them, the three forming a small, intimate circle that reflected the bonds of trust, affection, and shared experience that had developed in just a single day. The quiet of the evening, punctuated by the occasional rustle of leaves outside and the soft ticking of a clock in the hall, provided a backdrop for reflection, and Lucy realized that what had started as a temporary responsibility had become a meaningful engagement with both father and son, a chance to witness and contribute to the dynamics of love, care, and understanding in this family. Ethan spoke again, this time with a smile that softened his authoritative presence, inviting Lucy to consider returning not just as a temporary helper, but as a trusted part of their household, someone whose insights, empathy, and warmth could continue to shape Max's days and experiences. Lucy's eyes widened slightly, a mixture of surprise and delight washing over her, and she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, knowing that her ordinary day had culminated in a rare and extraordinary opportunity. Max hugged her tightly, whispering a thank you for staying and playing with him, and Lucy felt a swell of emotion, recognizing the depth of the impact she had made in such a short time. Ethan nodded approvingly, his expression calm but filled with warmth, and Lucy understood that the invitation to return was not simply a formality, but a genuine offer of trust, collaboration, and connection. The house, now quiet except for the soft murmurs and laughter of the three of them, seemed to reflect the harmonious closure of the day, each room, each shadow, each beam of light a testament to the bonds that had been formed through patience, attentiveness, and heartfelt engagement. As the sun fully set, casting the estate in a gentle twilight, Lucy stood and took a deep breath, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment, belonging, and anticipation for the days ahead. The ordinary task of filling in for her sister had transformed into an extraordinary experience of human connection, understanding, and mutual respect, leaving Lucy with the reassurance that her presence had mattered, that trust had been earned, and that meaningful relationships could flourish in the most unexpected of circumstances. With Max holding her hand and Ethan smiling softly beside them, Lucy felt the completion of a day that had begun with curiosity, patience, and care, and ended with clarity, connection, and a firm sense of belonging, setting the stage for continued joy, collaboration, and emotional growth within this family.